Can you believe this ball game at Shea?
Oh, brother.
So the winning run is at second base with 2 out, 3-2 to Mookie Wilson. Little roller up along first, behind the bag. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it.
Yeah, I'm not a Mets fan. Sick of the Boston Red Sox and that whole cute thing that they had going. Now they're a bunch of front-running fans. But I got to tell you, the clip of Vin Scully calling the bottom of the 10th inning in Game 6 of the 1986 World Series gets me every single time. Gets me every time because I can still remember, as clear as day, sitting in the living room at however late o'clock at night it was with my mom and my dad, and I think one of my brothers too, watching that game. And my mom wanted me to go to bed because it was late. And my dad, who normally didn't refute too much of what my mom said, things like that, said, let him stay up. It's a great game. And I can still remember, I swear to God, I can still remember the part where Mets outfielder Mookie Wilson hits that little roller up along first. And I can see Bill Buckner charging that ball. And I'm sitting there in on the chair in front of the television in my living room, and I'm thinking to myself, he's going to bobble that ball. And then sure enough, it happened. Now, I don't need to tell you, but right now, you are listening to the most popular podcast amongst women over 75. It is the Engel Angle. And I am Fort Worth Star Telegram columnist Mac Engel. Topic du jour is baseball, the game that fancies itself as America's pastime. Anyone over the age of 5 knows that baseball ranks way behind football, miles behind basketball, and is fast approaching a spot right next to hockey and soccer. It might even be behind soccer right now. Now, don't believe baseball's dying. That's a bunch of crap. That's nonsense. Baseball is a $1 billion a year industry with TV networks lined up around the block to give teams billions and billions of dollars, or hundreds of millions of dollars rather, to televise their games so they can have live programming. Not to mention parents all over the United States forking over thousands of dollars so their kids can play select ball. I always love when I hear that. My kid made select ball. No, he didn't. That means you paid for it. That's what happens. My kid, yeah, they were asked to join this team. Yeah, because you paid full freight. That's how that works. So this is how you know when a business is dying. If somebody says baseball's dying, this is how you know. Because their stores or their company continues to shrink and they start closing stores. That's when you know a business is dying. Major League Baseball has 30 clubs, and it's probably going to expand here in a short while as well. It's not blockbuster video. But baseball, and specifically Major League Baseball, no longer sit at the head of what was mostly a barren sports table for decades. For about 80 years, baseball ran the American sports scene because there was almost no competition. There was boxing, there was horse racing, college football, and that was about it. Then came football, then came television, then came cable television, then came basketball, then came hockey. Now you have soccer, softball, the X Games, skiing, everything. 1,000 options to watch and or play 45 hours a day. So of course, baseball was going to feel this squeeze in some way, shape, or form. Now, baseball has not helped itself at all as the game has evolved into basically a beer league softball game. It just is not going to appeal to the modern viewer who needs more stimulation than a baseball game offers. The internet has changed all of us, and baseball has no clue how to integrate it with a game that now lasts longer than The Godfather.
Hey, what are you going to do? Nice college boy, huh? Didn't want to get mixed up in the family business? Huh? Now you want to gun down a police captain, why? Because he slapped you in the face a little bit? Huh? What do you think, this is the Army where you shoot him a mile away? You got to get up close like this, and bada bing, you blow their brains all over your nice Ivy League suit.
Rest in peace, Sonny. Godfather, celebrated as one of the greatest movies ever made, is 2 hours and 55 minutes. That movie is edited, manicured, cut, re-edited, and scaled back to be sharp, crisp, and entertaining for 2 hours and 55 minutes. According to USA Today, the average length of an MLB game is now just over 3 hours. The last time the average length of an MLB game was less than 3 hours was 2015. There's one Godfather. There are 15 MLB games a night during the regular season. That's 162 games per team per season, and that's before the playoffs. To discuss the current state of the game is a man who deeply loves and cares about baseball because it gave him so much. He created an online community of people, including a lot of ex-Major League Baseball players who want to see baseball return to some of the way the game used to be played before analytics and statistical analysis basically overran it. You can look up hashtag SheGone, 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 and you'll see what I'm talking about. This guy was in the major leagues from 1992 to 2001. He played for the Texas Rangers, Boston Red Sox, Colorado Rockies, before finishing his career with the Toronto Blue Jays.
Foster to Frye, runner on the move. That ball is going to fall in the gap and go to the wall. Frye takes a look. He's going to stop at first and complete the cycle. An RBI single and a piece of Blue Jay history for Jeff Frye.
That is Jeff Frye, and that clip came from his special night, when he hit for the cycle as a member of the Blue Jays in 2001, and he is my very special guest for this episode.
What's up, buddy?
You tell me.
Oh, man, just living the dream, man. Got back from 8 days on the road in Wyoming and had an incredible time.
How was the weather?
It was a little warmer than we thought it was going to be. It was probably in the high 70s, low 80s.
High 70s, low 80s. You know, now that you're older, you're in your mid-50s, and you work with young baseball players, young athletes, and I've seen this time and again where I see a guy who comes into money. He's young. He's 21, 22. This might have been you, and I'm not calling you out by any stretch. It's just a young person thing, and they get married. And I'm like, oh, dude, what are you doing? You have no idea what's getting ready to come at you, literally. Do you ever try to tell young people, like, especially guys who might make it to the major leagues or to big time sports, like, dude, slow down on this, because you don't want to, like Mike Modano, the former Dallas Stars player, was one of the smarter ones I ever saw who handled it, which was he didn't get married until much, much later in his career. And I look at these young guys, I'm like, guys, slow, you don't do this. But like, do you ever try to talk to these guys about it?
Yeah, they don't listen. They got those girls, you know.
I mean, what point do you see guys start overspending? They start drawing, and I hear, it's not just baseball players. I hear this all the time about doctors and lawyers. They are all incredibly dumb about money, and they are spending money that they literally do not have.
The minute they sign that contract. I had a high school kid from Whitestone who got drafted, and we agreed to his bonus and wanted to know if he could go down to the dealership and buy a new Corvette, if we could get the organization, the Cardinals, to send a letter saying that he agreed to this amount of money. He said, "You think we can get that done?" And I said, "Absolutely not."
So how many things, like, as an agent and I have some thoughts on agents. There's one guy out there I know you've called out. I'm not a Scott Boras guy, but I know why people sign up with him. Do any of these agents try to at least try to get these guys to slow down in terms of, you don't need to buy all this shit? You don't, like, can they put anything in place that protects them from themselves so they don't have zero?
They can get a prenup. Like Mike Lansing got a prenup with his second wife because he got burned on the first one. But I've asked my second wife for a prenup. She's like, well, they guilt you into not signing it. And we're stupid. We're chasing those girls. And Madonna never got married because he had all those girls throwing themselves at his ass.
Oh my God. It was when I covered the team, I one time, I love telling the story. I was in my late 20s, early 30s. I was covering a team, and every now and then I would stay in the same team hotel. Now, I'm not a player by any stretch of the imagination, but it's after a game, like I think in Detroit, and I'm youngish. I hadn't shaved, and I'm kind of dressed, decently. I've got a suit on, and these young girls come up to me and they start talking to me. And I said to them, I finally said to them, I said, do you girls know who I am? And they said, you're on the Dallas Stars, right? And I said, no, I'm not on the team. They had no idea, and they dropped me like the hottest rock. They were gone. They're like, oh, well, he's not on the team. Who cares? See you later. Bye.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Where's the players at? Yeah, it's sad. These girls go to they know the schedule. They're waiting at the hotel. It makes me sick to my stomach.
Okay, well, so I didn't mean to get this conversation totally on that track, although it was highly entertaining. But when we talk, I'll preface this by saying Jeff was great about this. We talked like a couple weeks ago about the state of Major League Baseball and baseball in general. And then I come back later. I'm like, oh no, the audio didn't record. Jeff was great about it. He's like, hey, I understand. Shit happens. So I'm gonna ask you some of the same things that we talked about. We just now coming off the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. I have followed you for years on Twitter, which is #SheGone. That's your thing about the evolution of baseball.
Mm-hmm.
You're a baseball guy. You should have every reason to love Major League Baseball and baseball. And Jeff, I got to tell you, when I follow you, I'm like, does he even like baseball anymore? Do you even like baseball anymore?
I do love baseball. I don't love the way that's being played today. Especially, and it's trickling all the way down to the youth levels.
Is it really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, 8-year-olds have to have a walk-up song, and they go to home plate, and they're dancing, and, its parents are really ruining all this.
Why is it the parents? Why isn't necessarily the coaches and the event organizers who are on the hook for this? Because I blame them, and I blame parents, obviously, are, the tail wags the dog kind of thing. But I blame the youth leagues and the youth coaches as much as anybody.
Yeah, I think a lot of times the coaches are limited in what they can say to the parents because they don't want them to leave. They're paying them. So if they say, hey, this type of behavior is not allowed, even though your kid might be having fun, dancing around or throwing his bat or whatever, they're always fearful that the parents are going to take their kid to another team and pay that $2,000 to $3,000 a season. So I think and a lot of the coaches are young. They're under 30 years old, so they didn't grow up in our era where we were certain things we were taught not to do and to play the game with respect and things like that. So they didn't grow up with that.
When did you see this happen? Like, when did this start?
Oh, I don't know, man. I can't really pinpoint when it started. I know a few years ago, and I know it started before this, but a few years ago when Rob Manfred hired 4 or 5 former major league players and said, we're going to, promote this to the younger generation and let the kids have fun and let's celebrate and all this stuff. And it seems to me now it's out of control where a guy hits a homer and he fires his bat and hits his chest and starts yelling. And now I don't know how we're going to fix it. I mean, I saw the other day, I posted something in the Dominican, the Summer League or whatever. A player hits a homer and fires his bat down and takes his helmet off and pounds his chest. And this was posted or tweeted by that organization, that professional organization, like promoting it. It's recently been deleted, but it was posted by them.
Isn't the whole bat flip thing, is that fairly common in like the Dominican or even in the Korean or Japanese leagues?
I think it's more now. I mean, I played in Venezuela in the early 90s, and it wasn't a thing then. I mean, the players, I think people are confusing it with, the Latin players seem to play with more energy and more passion than American guys. And I think we see that. But it was never about, disrespect. And oftentimes a young, hotshot Latin American player get called up to the big leagues, and he was digging himself, and he'd do something disrespectful, and he'd get pulled aside, and he wouldn't do it again. I mean, it happened with Acuna Jr. He dogged it on a couple times on pop-ups, and his manager took him out of the game, and next thing you know, he was apologizing, and I don't know that it's fixed it completely, but the days of those older veteran guys who would step in and tell the youngsters that, hey, this is not how we do it up here.
Well,
I think those days are over.
But you think there's like a middle ground on this? Because I think one of baseball's problems was the fact that guys didn't celebrate anything when they should have. And now you've got guys who celebrate nothing, which is generational. But do you, like when you were playing in the 90s, you were still part of that generation. Guys didn't celebrate until they won Game 7 of the World Series or the bottom of the ninth inning walk-off home run. It was like all or nothing. And to me, that seemed like, I was like, show something.
Well, we showed it, but we didn't show it in front of everybody. We showed it in the locker room. We showed it in the dugout and trust me, we were happy. I mean, I had a walk-off home run in Fenway, and I ran around the bases and high-fived my teammates, and I was excited as you can possibly imagine, and went in the locker room and opened a beer and was all smiles and high-fives. But on the field, we just didn't do that.
In terms of baseball code, I see things that are addressed now in terms of if a guy hit a home run and he tried to show up a pitcher, the next guy was getting it in his ear, or any of that kind of language, which is, if you did something to my teammate as a pitcher, it was his responsibility to take care of it on the mound by throwing at you. Mm-hmm. Do you like that or you dislike that?
I like that.
So did I.
I like that. I loved it. I had a teammate in Boston, John Wasden.
Yeah.
That just came over and was a young guy, and the White Sox were playing the White Sox, and they accidentally hit John Valentin, our stud third baseman, and broke his wrist. And so we came in the next inning, and I went up to Wasden in the dugout, and I said, if you get the first two dudes out, I said, smoke the next dude. And he just looked at me and nodded his head. And I didn't know for sure. This is kind of how you test these guys. If this guy's going to be one of us, he's going to buy in to eye for an eye. And, this is team first stuff. And so he gets the first two dudes out, and here comes Ron Karkovice, the nicest guy in the world. And first pitch, he smoked him right in the ribs. And Karkovice dropped his bat and went first, knew exactly why it happened, and it was over. And I think that's the problem, is that once they started these warnings and the umpires controlling everything, the players are no longer allowed to police themselves. And, especially you look in college now, a kid can flip his bat 50 feet in the air, and if the opposing team retaliates by hitting him, the pitcher is suspended and the head coach is suspended.
How often do you see examples like that? Where, like you mentioned the instance where Karkovice gets hit in the ribs. That's all right. But how often can you trust that pitcher to have the control to hit him in a place? You don't want to break a guy's wrist. I don't care what anybody says. You don't want to hurt a guy. You don't want him in the head. But how often can you trust that pitcher to say, go take care of this? Can you trust that guy to be able to throw it where he really wants to throw it, to scare and intimidate that other guy?
You used to be able to trust guys to do that. Nowadays, I don't think you can, because I think they're not being taught that.
So you don't think it's a lack of control?
Yes, nothing above the head, ever. Below the shoulders, above the knees, and you can generally tell when a guy wants to hit a guy and doesn't. So if a pitcher comes in and knows it's his job, he gets the sign from the catcher, or maybe he's told by the manager, pitching coach to drill a guy in retaliation, you can tell if he wants to hit the guy, because if he throws 2 or 3 pitches 4 foot behind the guy, he doesn't want to hit him. He's afraid to hit him. But the guys who know how to do it aim just a little bit behind the hitter and, about just above belt high, and hit him either in the back or in the butt or something like that. Those guys know how to do it. And the guys that I played with, for the most part, knew how to do it.
So what did you make of, like, Roger Clemens had exceptional control. We saw his stuff with Mike Piazza when he was with the Mets. We saw some of the other things that he did when he was younger, when he was pitching for the Red Sox, maybe even in Toronto too. Did you ever doubt, Jeff, that when he did those things, that he knew exactly where he was going and he was trying to scare the hell out of a batter and to back him off?
He knew. He knew, just like the guys before him knew. Bob Gibson, Nolan Ryan, those guys knew. They knew. It was very rare that guys would get thrown at their head, because the guys had, it seemed to me like they had better control, or they knew the consequences if they hit somebody in the head, and they didn't want to go there. But the Piazza and Clemens thing, that was just kind of an ugly scene when Piazza broke his bat and Clemens threw the bat at him, and all that was just unfortunate. And I played with one of the biggest headhunters ever, Pedro. You didn't mess around with Pedro on the mound. And I can remember a time in Oakland when we had I think Chris Hammond, soft toss and lefty, throws a pitch inside and Olmedo signs about 80 miles an hour, and he leans into it and gets hit. And Pedro's in the dugout, and knowing he's pitching the next day, yelling at Olmedo signs as he goes to first, going, "You want to get hit? Okay. You'll get hit." And the next day, first they be in right between the numbers. and Olmedo signs knew why.
Did he say anything?
No, he just went to first. He knew why. What are you going to say? You got one of the best pitchers in the history of the game who you shouldn't have. What you did the day before was bush league by leaning into an 80-mile-an-hour fastball that was almost a strike. And so, we're going to let you know tomorrow that we didn't appreciate that.
Any of those pitchers, like, you were pretty good. You had a 9-year career. That's a long time. That's a long time. Ask your ex-wives. I say that joke. I know I'm joking. But any of those pitchers ever shit talk you? Do pitchers shit talk guys like, "You want to do this? Let's go"? Or is that because of the distance, the physical distance between the mound and the plate? Could you even hear it?
Not really. Not really. They didn't do it that much. I did it more from the dugout. I was always yelling at the opposing pitcher.
What would you yell?
I can't say it right now, but especially if, 3 or 4 innings into the game, some pitcher who, in my mind, doesn't have very good stuff is shutting us out or something, I'd start yelling in the dugout. I'd start rattling the bats, throwing stuff in the dugout, going, "Let's go! This dude ain't got, you know what?" And they'd look in the dugout. I was like, "Yeah, you ain't got shit." I'm trying to fire my team up.
Talking about baseball rules, and you're talking about the way baseball has changed, and one thing that I saw, it was the Texas Rangers home opener, and they lost basically on the umpire's discretion. You probably saw it, the second base umpire's discretion of saying that the base runner went too far wide of the bag on a takeout at second base.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the last out of the inning, last out of the game. And my brains basically fell out of my skull. I was like, "You have got to be kidding me." We have both seen wide slides that are preposterous. You were probably on the wrong end of a handful of them in your career, where guys made no attempt at getting to second base. They were just trying to break up the double play and get in your way. This was nothing like that.
Nope.
So you know the play I'm talking about, right?
I remember.
Okay.
I couldn't believe the game ended on that.
Neither can I. It was total chicken shit. And I rambled and ranted about it. Were you ever on the wrong end of one of those slides, Jeff, where you looked at the umpire or looked at anybody and said, "What the fuck? Give me a break." And they just basically were like, "Yeah, man, suck it up"?
No, I wouldn't have accepted that if an umpire had said that to me. But I was on quite a few slides where the guys came in there just trying to kill it. But that was just part of the game. That was, as a middle infielder, in that era, you had to be ready for that. You had to anticipate these guys coming in there. And no matter where, if you're on the inside part of the bag, the outside part, or in the back of the bag, they were coming to get you. And they weren't, they were maybe not trying to hurt you, but their job was to not allow you to get off a strong throw to first base. And that was just part of the deal. And I actually loved that challenge. That was kind of the thing as a second baseman. You had to be athletic enough and tough enough to hang in there on those double plays. And it kind of, your pitchers and your teammates appreciated your toughness. And that has just been eliminated from the game completely, at second base and at home plate. It's terrible for the game. And because of two plays, the play where Chase Utley took out Flores, I think, at shortstop, and where Buster Posey got hurt at home. And those two plays have completely changed the dynamic in Major League Baseball, and I think the game is suffering for it.
Has there been any changes in the last 20 years? Because I'm sure you have been accused of, you sound like the old man, get off my lawn guy, which everybody says
daily.
Okay.
Daily.
So everybody gets older, goes through that. It doesn't matter what we're complaining about or pontificating in the evolution of society or sport or whatever else. But have there been any changes that you've seen in baseball or Major League Baseball? You're like, no, that one's good. Like that we're the game and the sport are better off because of that change, or are there none?
Man, off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of one that's helped, and I can't think of one. I mean, I don't think that.
About the rise in home runs. Yeah, everybody says, "Oh, baseball was saved by Sosa and McGuire's steroid home run chase." I'm like, no, it wasn't. It was interesting for a summer. That didn't save the game.
No, it was exciting because you're chasing all-time records, and we know records in baseball are everything. But the rules, I mean, is the game better because a pitcher now has to face three batters? I don't think so. All that did was hurt left-handed relievers' chances of making it to the big leagues. The days of guys like Tony Foss's coming in and getting one guy out in a big situation in the eighth inning are over now. It just took away from the strategy side for managers. The bigger bases that were, I don't know what that has done.
Was that about injury?
They say it's for injury, but I don't know. Man, these are grown men. Why are we so worried about them getting hurt?
Oh, they're worried about contracts and money.
Yeah, I guess. But I mean, the rules changes are being made by the commissioner, not the players. So, the owners don't want to pay the guys more money. So why are they, in my mind, now the universal DH, I'm not a fan of that.
I hate that one.
Maybe that's the one that I think I'm not totally against, just because I don't want to see a kid who hasn't hit since high school go up to home plate with a 0.20 batting average, and it's kind of a easy out, automatic out. It's just kind of embarrassing. I don't know why, as a pitcher, knowing that you're going to maybe get 50 at-bats in a season if you're a starter, why you wouldn't at least work at it a little bit.
I thought they liked it. I mean, you play in the American League. Did most of the pitchers like batting?
They loved it. I mean, pitchers batting practice. Whenever once or twice a year they'd have pitchers batting practice, like before regular batting practice, and I would always show up early just to watch these dudes out there having just the best time. And some of them, especially in Colorado, man, some of these guys can hit some bombs. Gabe White, Brian Bohannon. I used to mess with Bohannon because we came up together with the Rangers at 92, and then he went to Colorado and put on a little weight, and he didn't look too slim in his pinstripes. And I used to say, and he could always hit. Most unathletic looking guy you'd ever seen, but he could hit for some reason. I was like, man, you're just like the poor man's Babe Ruth, man. You should have switched to hitting a long time ago, Bo.
Wasn't Mike Hampton like a really good hitter?
Hampton hit 5 or 6 home runs in 1 year.
Yeah.
He's like one of the best all-time hitting pitchers. He was a threat.
I loved watching. I like the strategy of it, and I know why they got away with it, and all, or they did away with it. I know they had been pushing, or at least I had always heard the union had been pushing that. The players union had pushed for that for a while because batters make more money and all. It drives up the minimum salaries and all that other stuff. But I know from a strategy standpoint, I preferred having the pitcher hit just because I thought it made it more interesting. But
I agree. And it was an advantage to have a pitcher who could handle the bat. Right, those Braves teams of the 90s with Maddox and Glavine and Small, those dudes could get down a bunt. Maddox could, swing the bat. Glavine could swing the bat. And that's an advantage to have your starting pitcher not be an automatic out. That's why when, Zach Greinke, the dude can hit as a pitcher. And when he's pitching against whatever team and the other team's pitcher is an automatic out, that's a huge advantage.
So, I mentioned the players union, and in my years of covering professional sports and now even looking beyond that, I don't know if there is a better union in the United States than the Major League Baseball Players Association. I can't think of a better one. There might be, but I can't think of one. And having said that, and as we look at all the rules changes and all the things that have happened in Major League Baseball, my contention is that the union deserves at least some of the credit and or blame with the direction of all of this. I know you would be a union guy. You paid dues for a long time. Do you buy that? Do you think that ultimately that union deserves some credit or blame for where we are with Major League Baseball and the sport?
Absolutely. And then forever, our union was considered maybe the strongest union in the world, at least in the United States. And I don't know that I feel the same right now.
Why?
Because some of the things in the last collective bargaining agreement that have been agreed upon, I'm pretty certain we would have not agreed upon.
Like what?
Well, invisible man on second base. Can you imagine the meeting with Donald Fear in spring training, going over the new CBA in a locker room filled with guys like Will Clark, Mike Pagliarulo, Gary Gaetti, if they're talking about we're going to agree to putting an invisible man on second base in extra innings. There's no possible way the players that I played with would have agreed to that. And this, you saw all the talk about going away from that once we got out of the COVID year and last year. That was like, okay, this is something we did to speed up the games. There's no fans or whatever. We're just going to have some semblance of a baseball season, 60 games. Next year, we're going to go back to the more traditional way of playing. And then the players voted to keep that rule, and I was just shocked that they would want to do that, because that's what they do in perfect game tournaments that every game's an hour and 45 minutes. We got to get this next game in. We got to get these 5 games in so everybody gets their money's worth. So we have to have a rule to speed it up, whether it's a California rule or whatever. And to me, that's not real baseball. You don't put a man on second base in a Major League Baseball game who didn't earn his position at second base. The guy who made the last out of the last inning goes to second in the major leagues. Come on.
Then how do you? We have seen baseball just throw anything to try to solve what they feel are problems, which is the games are too long. Obviously the analytics then created a monster that I don't think anybody saw coming when it became more prevalent in 1989. 1998, and then moving forward, they just hit the gas pedal on it in 2005, 8, 10, whatever. But, and this had existed long before Moneyball and became popular in the movie and the book. Bill James was in on this stuff a long time ago, and other guys were too. Tony La Russa was. Tony La Russa and Billy Beane never get the credit or blame, or pardon me, not Billy Beane, Sandy Alderson. When Sandy was his boss with the A's. Sandy and Bill James never get the responsibility, the blame for where we are today in the way the game is played, in my opinion. So all that being said, how do you undo it? How do you make it so it's a 2 hour and 25-minute game or 2 hour and 30-minute game where there's action, where people steal bases, and we're not just basically playing beer league softball waiting for 3-run home runs on every single pitch?
Yeah, I don't know if we can do it. I know that when Theo Epstein resigned from the Cubs, he made a statement about analytics and how the game has become not as entertaining as it used to be, and that we've overdone it with the analytics. And know that he now works from the commissioner's office, and I know he's working to try and fix that. So you know how I feel about Mr. Rob Manfred, our commissioner. So
your buddy.
I'm in hopes that maybe Rob can be replaced with Theo, and Theo is truly committed to getting the game at least closer to what it used to be, where it's entertaining. I saw something come out yesterday about the price for a family of 4 to go to a Major League Baseball game, and it's averages between $250 and $300 to go to a baseball game. For a team that's 20 games under 500 in Chicago, I think they have the highest price, Chicago or Boston. And you go to a game with your family, and it's there's a lot of things that go into that. Kids are going to be tired the next day for school and all this stuff. It's a commitment, and people are going to stop paying that type of money for a product that's not entertaining. When I don't know, man. It's the same thing with the select stuff. If these parents keep paying for little Johnny to go play in Florida for a week, perfect game, $3,000, $4,000, these organizations are not going to stop having these tournaments. So until they do that, it's not going to stop.
I keep waiting for it because I've heard for 20 years, Jeff, about lots of different things in the sports model. It's going to collapse, it's going to fall apart, it's going to implode, all these things. And it doesn't. It just keeps getting bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not smart enough to know when that housing, the housing market is going to collapse or the bubble is going to burst. So what makes you think it actually will? I don't know if it will anymore. I mean, people keep paying for this crap everywhere.
I think when the TV contracts come up for baseball next time, I think it's going to be a huge eye-opener. A huge eye-opener. Baseball is so far behind football and a long ways behind basketball when it comes to TV revenue and contracts, that I think the next time that contract comes up, the owners are going to say, wait a minute, why aren't people watching our sport anymore? We're going to have to do something.
Do you think people are watching it, or do you think it's just white noise in somebody's house?
They're not watching it like we watched it.
No, I agree with that.
I used to not miss a pitch. I'd run to the bathroom. now I might go do something upstairs for 20 minutes, come back and say, oh, what's the score? How'd they score? Okay. When I was a kid, the first thing I did every morning was get up and get in the newspaper and see how my favorite players did in the box scores. If the game wasn't on TV or if I was unable to listen to it on the radio, which, when I was growing up in California, if a baseball game was on the radio during the day, I have my extension cord through my grandmother's window out in the driveway, listening to the Giants game with Lon Simmons and trying to do almost a play-by-play or emulating exactly every play that's happening in the game. I'd throw a pitch, ground ball to short, I'd field it, throw it to first, and I'd have to throw it in the square on the garage to get it out. And I did that every single day. And that we know that's not happening with kids anymore. They don't even watch. They're too busy looking at their phones and playing video games.
Well, in light of that, do you really think any game can really compete with what you just mentioned? Kids, we all do. I do. I'll look at my phone. I mean, I'm totally addicted to my phone and I hate it. But I mean, how does any sport really compete with that?
I don't know, man. Yeah, I'm with you. I do the same friggin' thing all the time, and I'm like, thank God we didn't have these things when we were growing up. Thank goodness. And I actually at this camp, I just did a baseball camp in Cody, Wyoming last week, and was talking to this mom about this exact topic, and she goes, "Yeah, neither one of my kids have phones yet. One's 10 and one's 12." I said, "Good. That's good. Let them go outside and play with their friends." and learn how to resolve their issues and just be kids. And it's sad. It makes me sick to my stomach, buddy, when I go out to dinner and my girlfriend and I sit down and we're looking at the menu. I look over to the table to my right, and there's mom and dad, and they're two young kids, and all four of them are staring at their cell phones, not even talking. And I'm like, what are we doing?
We didn't give our daughter her phone until she was almost 13, and I dragged my feet on that and fought it. And I mean, I know it's society and it's evolution, and 70, 80 years ago, it was parents struggled about it with television, and there was cable television, then there was computers, and now a cell phone is basically just, it's basically a computer. But we had the same fight. And as I look at people playing sports, people are playing and watching sports all the time. They just don't consume it the way you and I once did. And that model's gone, unless maybe it's football, but football is a 1 week a day investment. And I just think it's going to be, it's different. And I'm with you. I'm with you almost in lockstep in terms of the way you watch baseball. I just don't see, and I talk to announcers. People have been announcing baseball for forever, and they bemoan it, not because they're older, just because nothing happens. It's either strikeout, power swing, home run, the end. I'm like, you have got to fix this. And I don't know if they really can.
Yeah, I don't know either, man. It's the 3 true outcomes: the walk, homer, strikeout. I've obviously taken over Major League Baseball, and it's tough to watch. And I spend a lot of time around former players, and I always ask them, I was like, "Do you watch the game anymore?" And they're like, "No, I hadn't watched in 2 years." And that hurts my heart, because I mean, if the guys who played this game at the highest level can't even stomach watching a game, and we loved it, we're passionate about it, it's all we ever wanted to do. If we can't watch it, how's the casual fan going to want to watch it?
I think because Major League Baseball games have turned into picnics. I think a lot of them, I think they were for a long time, but now basically what you're selling is a 3.5 hour picnic of going to the ballpark and eating state fair food, basically. I mean, you're talking about 250.
The $30 hot dog.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're getting it, and I just keep wondering it, like kind of like you did. I'm like, okay, because I've been saying it for 15 years. This balloon's going to pop, and it never does. And because of that, I've just quit saying it. I'm like, okay, somebody's buying all this stuff. It's not me. Somebody is. Right. And you know what, Jeff? I went to a game a couple weeks ago, and even though I've bitched about baseball and we bemoan it and all that stuff, I still love a good baseball game. I still like it. There was an exciting 6th inning in there. It's 6th inning in the middle of June. It's 2 teams. The Twins are good. The Rangers are, trying to get better. But Jeff, when a baseball game is played right, it's still a hell of a lot of fun to watch. It just doesn't happen that much anymore.
I agree. And I, being a former Ranger, I'm in the legacy program with the Rangers, and we get free tickets to the games. And I've been to one game this year. And I sat with a friend, and he's a baseball fan, and he could not stop talking about the shift and why are these guys not trying to hit the ball over there? Look at the lineup. There's 3-4 guys in the lineup batting under 200. How are these guys even in the major leagues? And I'm sitting there going, well, he's just a normal fan, and this is what he's seeing. And he sends me messages all the time about this stuff and what he sees, and it's sickening to him. So he's not the only one out there that sees this.
Last question. I've kept you way too long, but this has been a lot of fun. Last question. If you could change one rule, you can't fire Rob Manfred. Take that one off the table. You can't fire Rob Manfred. And you can't name yourself commissioner and give yourself a $30 million a year salary. So those 2 things are gone. So if you could put in one change, one plausible change, Jeff, that you think would have a positive impact on Major League Baseball, what would it be?
Oh, maybe that's a tough one. I mean, I got to get rid of the invisible man on second base. I can't do that one.
So that one's
not in the major leagues. But I'd also get rid of the umpire warnings. Let's get rid of the warnings. And let's go back to having the second baseman. I mean, the runners can take out the middle infielders, and we can have collisions at the plate. And while we're at it, let's get rid of instant replay, and let's let those managers go out there and argue calls like they used to, because that used to be some of the funnest stuff, watching Billy Martin or Earl Weaver or Lou Piniella go out there and argue a call. To me, that was entertaining.
I agree.
That's gone from the game now completely.
I until you just said that, I forgot about that. And that was a big fabric of the game. Like, you remember when Pete Rose pushed, and Pete was crazy, but when Pete Rose pushed the umpire during a Mets game, was a Reds-Mets game in the 80s, what a huge deal that was. And that's never a good idea. You want to put your hands on an umpire. Although I got to tell you, and I'm going to bring this up, is I don't know if there is a bigger pack of more oversensitive people in sports, including sports media, than Major League Baseball umpires. They're the worst.
I agree. And I had a lot of them that I was friends with, but some of them I just couldn't take, man. I mean, I loved Ken Kaiser and his personality, and you didn't even look at Ken Kaiser. He former professional wrestler. He would tear your head off, and you did not argue a call with Ken Kaiser.
Why not? Like, who the hell do these guys think they are? Do these guys really think that somebody plopping down $30 gives a shit about an umpire?
I don't know, man. They start building up this persona that they think they're, they've been in the game for 20 or 30 years. I guess it's just seniority, and you're the young pup who just got called up. But who are you to question them? I never understood that, but I can see how they develop that. And you think about these guys, no matter what call they make, half the people disagree with them.
Right.
So if that's your job, and 50% of the people you work with every day think you're an idiot or hate you, I think over the years, man, you might start saying, screw these guys. I'm going to do what I want to do.
Well, the other thing, too, is I don't think people realize how often umpires rely on the batter. If they trust the batter and if they trust the pitcher, and if those guys, like, I remember with Tony Gwynn, how many umpires would rely on Tony Gwynn to get the call right.
Mm-hmm.
Or Greg
Ted
Maddox.
Williams. I heard stories about Ted Williams that umpires would say that Ted didn't swing, it wasn't a strike. And they're just like, why not? I was like, well, he has better vision than I do. If he's not swinging at it, it must not be a strike. And then I remember Durwood Merrill. I think he's from Texarkana, Texas. And Durwood, I turn around. We knew when Durwood was behind the plate later in his career, there was a pretty big strike zone, pitcher strike zone. And I turned around, I was like, Durwood, that's outside. He goes, Hall of Fame pitch. So what are you going to say? He's like the nicest man you've ever met. You can't, you just got to kind of grin and bear it, man, and move on.
Jeff, I really appreciate this. This has been a hell of a lot of fun. The first one was good. The second one's even better. And here's the best part. I know this time it recorded, so there will not be a third time.
All right, buddy.
Thanks, Jeff. Take care of yourself.
All right. See you, Matt.
So like I told Jeff Frye, I still genuinely love a good baseball game. When I was a kid, baseball was my favorite sport, bar none. I knew all the teams. I knew all the players. I collected baseball cards. I'd get some autographs occasionally. I loved it. Now I have all that stuff still, and I'm trying to sell it on eBay, by the way, if you want it. One of the reasons I loved baseball then and now is because it is loaded with life lessons. Most sports are. Baseball's stuffed with it. And the life lesson that I got from baseball is a little odd, but it's through baseball nonetheless, because the very first job I ever had was at the AAA baseball stadium in Indianapolis, Indiana, when I was 14 years old, finishing up my freshman year in high school. That was going to be my summer job. I was going to sweep trash. My dad got me this job through a friend of his. I was going to sweep trash. So all my other friends, they're like lifeguards or doing stuff like that, and I'm sweeping garbage. I'm here at this baseball stadium at 7 o'clock in the morning, zit-faced, suburban, chubby white guy wearing glasses, working with 8 to 10 adult males with rakes, sweeping garbage. I was one of 2 white guys. The other white guy was this middle-aged, raging racist who was missing some teeth, and he would always corner me on our breaks because I was white. He didn't want to talk to the black guys. He wanted to talk to me. And he would tell me stories about all the sex that he was having. I'm 14 years old, a virgin, hard to believe. And this guy would tell me about all the sex that he was having with these women at bars. I'm 14. Then he goes on to say how he feels safe now and he's not afraid. I said to him, I said, why aren't you afraid anymore? I don't know why I even asked him. Like, why did I need to elongate this conversation when all I want to do is leave? Well, anyways, he says he's not afraid anymore because he bought himself a handgun. I'm 14 years old, and this guy's telling me this. Pretty sure he didn't have any kids. Anyways, Mom would drive me to the park like at 7, and I'd walk in, and they'd give me this rake, and we'd sweep garbage from underneath the seats. This was before leaf blowers were like really common. We had one leaf blower. We had one, and it was like this big hitter. And they would bring it out at the very, very end when all of the trash was swept, and then they would bring it out and blow the whole stadium. It was like a maybe 10, 12,000 seat stadium, but that's when you knew you were wrapping it up. That was when you heard the leaf blower crank up, you're like, oh, good, we're almost done. They would do anything not to use that leaf blower, more specifically, not to have to use the gasoline in order to power it up. You can imagine I didn't really talk to a lot of people when I was at this job. Like, I didn't talk to anybody. I hated that job. I worked hard, but I hated it. And I found any reason not to go. But my parents weren't having it. My parents were like, yeah, you're going to work. They had no clue what the job entailed. I could have been packaging guns for kids in South Africa, and they wouldn't have cared. I'm the youngest of 6 kids. Their priority was to get me out of the house, hopefully safe. They didn't want to hear about my problems as related to this job. They were trying to teach me about work ethic and making some money. Great lessons. I mean, I had grown up a spoiled kid, and I knew it. So to see that income disparity with my own eyes was life-changing in a really good way. But I still could not wait for that team to play on the road because it meant I didn't have to work the next morning. Or if I got really lucky, it would rain. And if it rained, then you couldn't do it. I'm not sure why. So I'm about 3 weeks into this summer job, and I have come down with a legit virus. I don't know what it is, but I know I'm sick, legitimately. I'm tired all the time, got some stomach stuff. Something's wrong. Now, I'm the youngest of 6. By this point, I better be dying for my mom to stop and really say, okay, son, we got to do something. Mom was the queen of, we're going to push through it. You're going to push through it. She wanted me out of the damn house. So we go to the doctor, take some tests. A few days later, I find out I have tested positive for not COVID, mono. I have mononucleosis. And per the doctor's orders, I am basically told to shut it down the rest of the summer. So now the job that I hated, I have to quit, and my parents can't do a damn thing about it. So how did I get mono? First girl I ever kissed gave me mono. Eileen, wherever you are, not only did you give me the headache from hell that day when we made out and basically slobbered all over each other, you gave me mono too. I couldn't get too mad though, because it got me out of the job I hated. And in a way, baseball taught me the valuable life lesson that most things in this life are a trade. Was the mono kiss worth flushing the rest of my summer?
You're goddamn right.